Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Charles speaking. You are tuned in to Axiom Flux Radio, and tonight it'll be me, PJ, and Andy doing the show. Welcome, welcome. I hope you guys enjoyed your Valentine's Day lately or yesterday, and had a lot of love to generate into this beautiful, awesome world. Although we are having some problems, hopefully we can add some solutions and talk about some substantial things tonight about what's going on. So we're going to get things started. I have a few articles over here that I'd like to share with you. Me being vegan, I do touch on this subject quite a bit and want to inspire my brothers and sisters to do the same thing. So we have bear with me, my computer is not the best. It's a little loaded up with a lot of nonsense. There we go. All right. You guys can all see that?
Yeah, I can see that.
All right. So a psychologist explains, let me get to the top here. Psychologist explains why people eat certain animals but love others. There's a video attached to it. I suggest you guys listen to it. It's very, very interesting. This lady, beautiful woman. She's actually, she looks pretty young, but she's actually 48 years old, and she's been a vegan for a long time, which kind of gives a lot of credibility to the vegan diet being a very, very good way to keep yourself young and healthy. So I'll start off here is, have you ever wondered why we treat certain animals like friends and others like commodities or food? For example, dogs and cats are considered members of the family, but we slaughter and eat cows and pigs. Because we think there is a distinction between the animals we love and the ones we eat, we do not think twice about what has to happen to the cows, the chickens, and pigs before they arrive on our plates as food. In her TED Talk, psychologist Melanie Joy explores the reasons why we are disgusted by the thought of eating golden retriever, but happily enjoy beef, pork, and chicken. All animals are equally sentient beings, but because we think that eating farmed animals for meat is normal, natural, and necessary, we never question our choice to mass slaughter and eat them. By looking into how our society has normalized the consumption of meat, Joy contends that we all have the choice to remove ourselves from this cruelty, but the first step is awareness. Thinking critically and carefully about the roles we've assigned farmed animals versus our pets, we can see beyond the constructs of carnism and work towards a more compassionate future. So that's pretty much a little bit about this article. If you guys, I can play a little bit of what she talks about, maybe run a little 5 minutes to kind of give you an idea.
Yeah, go for it, Charles.
Every day we engage in a behavior that is completely contrary to how we would optimally function. And I'm not talking about a modern technological practice such as posting embarrassing snapshots of one's unsuspecting partner on Facebook. I'm talking about an integral human behavior. I'm talking about a deeply intimate behavior. Every day we engage in a behavior that requires us to distort our thoughts, numb our feelings, and act against our core values, and which enables a global atrocity that can make even the most stoic of us weep in sorrow. And every day we could choose this behavior. We don't realize that it's irrational. We don't see that it's destructive. And we don't even know we have a choice. How can some of the most frequent and important choices we make appear not to be choices at all? How can the irrationality and destruction of a widespread behavior be virtually invisible? These are the questions I asked when I began my nearly 2 decades of research on the psychology of eating animals. And what I discovered was not at all what I had expected. As it turns out, there is a distinct underlying factor that both drives our behavior and prevents us from recognizing its irrationality and the destruction it causes. I identified and codified this factor, and I'm here to share my findings with you. And the good news is that simply becoming aware of this factor enables us to reclaim our rationality and freedom of choice, and to become more active participants in creating a humane and just world. My journey of discovery began in 1968, 25 years before I set foot in my first Harvard lecture, and nearly 50 years before I received the Ahimsa Award at the British House of Commons for my work on global nonviolence. I'm 48, so thank you. My family adopted a puppy we named Fritz. Now, Fritz was my first dog, and he was also my first friend. We did everything together. We played together, we napped together, we even vomited together once during a sickening road trip. And Fritz was also my first heartbreak when he died at the age of 13 of liver cancer. What I didn't realize back then was that my connection with Fritz would lead to a discovery that would transform my worldview. So I cared about Fritz. Now, I'm not unique. I mean, most of us care about animals. We teach our children to be kind to animals. Our hearts leap when we witness them at play. We recognize the injustice and feel outraged when they are abused. We empathize with animals. We share their fear, their joy, their sorrow. And how many of you have cared about a certain animal in your life? Just raise your hand. Now look around the room. That's a whole lot of caring. So to explain how my connection with my dog led me to this stage, I'd like to do a thought experiment. Imagine that you're a guest at a dinner party and your host serves you a dish that looks like this. Consider whether you'd find this delicious or disgusting. For those who would find it delicious, imagine you find it so delicious that you ask your host for the recipe. And she replies that the secret is in the meat. You use 3 pounds of well-seasoned golden retriever. Now take a moment to reflect on your thoughts and feelings. Chances are what you had just thought of as food, you now think of as a dead animal. What you just felt was delicious, you now feel is disgusting. Chances are your experience of the meat dramatically changed, even though nothing about the meat itself actually changed. So what changed? Well, what changed is your perception of the meat. And when it comes to eating animals, our perception is shaped largely, if not entirely, by our culture. In meat-eating cultures around the world, out of over 7 million animal species, people tend to classify only a handful as edible. All the rest are inedible and disgusting. So the question...
All right, so I'll just cut it short there. So if you get this out, it's very interesting all the way to the end. She makes up very, very valid points about how our perception is actually influenced in many ways, like she says, about certain animals being edible and other ones not being edible. So I'll go on to the next. Hopefully that it was clear, because I know my computer is acting up a little bit.
Just a little comment on the Charles before we move on.
Yeah.
It reminds me not just the animals, but there were an article on the guy who eats bricks. You know, house bricks.
Sorry, cut out there for a minute.
Yeah, I said, have you heard of the article where the guy, I'm not too sure, I can't remember where he's from now, but anyway, he's got an habit of eating house bricks.
Okay.
So, you know, it's perception on that, really. You don't really have to be down to a living thing anymore, really, does it?
No, exactly.
I mean, if you're starving, people will eat the soles off the shoes.
It's true. It's true. Like, I mean, if you're really hungry, I mean, you can actually really eat anything to keep you surviving, but it's not exactly necessary to eat certain.
Yeah, I mean, even in concentration camps, they were sucking on pebbles just to keep that hunger pain away.
Wow, imagine that. You start eating rocks and things like that. You're really at the point of desperation, and you really have no options, eh?
Yeah, and the little girl who was that hungry, she used to draw food on a piece of paper and eat it, thinking, you know, that were a story as well. That was quite a few months ago.
I think that's the new thing that
But that would work.
the DWP are going to bring in for people who claim benefits.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
that actually broke me. That almost broke me, that one, when I saw that young child drawing pictures of food and eating it, because that was the only way she could get food.
That's going to replace food banks, PJ, next year.
Pictures of food.
Yeah, pictures of food. Fiction. Food is a fiction, you know.
Well, it's, you know, the thing is about our perception of eating meats and so on. You know, if you look at big corporations and industry, how much money they generate and how much money they have and power to influence people's perception, and to go on board with these ideas of, well, you know, eating meat is natural and we need to eat meat. And it's not like she says, it's not natural, it's not normal, it's not a necessity. If you really look and do the history of humanity, most of us were vegetarian, we're vegans. We didn't really eat large amounts of meat, and if we did, it's because, you know, it was to survive or to adapt to the new environments that we were integrating with, right? And so if you actually look at the great minds of our times, like, you know, Da Vinci, Pythagoras, you know, all these great people, they were all vegans. They didn't eat meat, and you could see that they stayed young, and they actually were very, very highly intelligent people that brought great inventions to our, you know, to our growth as humans, as, you know, our progress in the world. You know, Da Vinci, I mean, you know, the CVT transmission, the helicopter, I mean, so many other things that he created. Pythagoras, you know, coming up with the mathematics and the music theory and all these kinds of things, you know, just kind of to prove that when you eat healthy and you don't really eat these tortured beings, like, you know, dead flesh and so on, it helps your anatomy to thrive and grow in a better, harmonious way as compared to flooding the body with a lot of chemicals and toxins that are generated from death and decay, and especially nowadays with factory farming. All the injections they give them and all the unhealthy environments that they actually live in, that transcends down to when we eat it. When we eat it on our plate, we think, oh, it looks nice and tasty to cook. We think that all the bad stuff is been cooked out of it, but the reality, it stays in there, and it's not good. It's not a good thing.
Sticks in the colon, doesn't it? Never gets removed, does it? Apparently, a lot of the meat actually sticks to the side of the colon, and it never actually leaves the body. Some of the residue, and I reckon if you lived to 70, you got something like about 5 pounds of waste meat inside you that you never get rid of.
Well, absolutely, and also, like, a lot of people that get colonoscopies, especially when they get in their old age, like my grandma, she got one done, and the doctor told her that she had, you know, feces inside of her that was there for like 25 years. So imagine, you know, you're having this staying inside your body for that long. It can't be good. It backs you up and causes many other kind of problems, right?
No,
now,
absolutely.
Now, I'm not saying that to people, you know, to you know, give up entirely on meat or anything. I mean, it's just, let's be humane, but I would recommend 100% give up the meat. But I mean, it's not an easy choice, and a lot of people are scared to become vegan or vegetarian because they think.
What about fruitarian? Why can't we just be fruitarians?
Yeah, fruitarians or vegetarians, or, you know, me, I eat a lot of hemp myself, where I load up on this stuff. It's one of the best things you can put in your diet. You got you know, all 20 of your amino acids. You got protein. You got iron. You got 9 of the essential amino acids. Plus, it repairs damaged DNA, and you also get omega-3 and 6. And if you look at most indigenous people throughout the world, especially here in North America, hemp was one of the most widely used plant-based protein. Also, not just for food, but for rope, for their teepees, for their boats, many things. Even the American Constitution was written on hemp paper. So, yep. If you know, one book I could recommend for people to check out is The Emperor Wears No Clothes, which is written by Jack Herer, which pretty much talks about all the 50,000 uses that hemp. So, that's a different subject. But yeah, we'll move on to the next series, the human victims of factory farming. My computer is a little slow today, so bear with me. If I can get this thing to go, it doesn't want to listen to me. Oh.
Actually, while you're getting that going, the hemp's full of CBDs, antioxidants, is fantastic in hemp.
Yeah, that's right. That's another thing. Well, it's, and that's one of the biggest things that we need in our body is antioxidants to help us fight a lot of diseases and stuff like that, right?
That's right. Well, it's well-known fact now that the CBD content, not so much the THC in cannabis, is the main thing that actually they've done the tests on that kills cancer cells or tells cancer cells to die.
That's right. Yep, you're absolutely right on that. And a lot of reports are coming out about this, and it's all through independent researching, which I always tell people, look, if you're gonna give credibility to anything, don't give much credibility to the pharmaceutical industry's research, because they pay a lot of money to get the research to go along with the agenda that they're trying to push, that they want to substantiate their product, as compared to independent researchers. They're not trying to make any money or anything like that. They have, they're just trying to find the truth and bring out.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that also, very briefly, Charles, and I'll let you get on. In industrial hemp is very low in tetrahydrocannabinol C. Well, THC9 is very low. It's less than 1% or something like that in just ordinary commercial hemp. But it's very high in antioxidants and the CBDs and etc. It's also a very good antidepressant. So basically, everything that you're above what you said in hemp is absolutely 100% true. Plus lots of other things, and it's why they made it illegal, because it's not just. And they use the hybrid cannabis plant to fight against it and say, well, look, it's not good for you, blah blah blah, and all the bullshit and the rest of it. So anyway, that's my piece on that. It's just I've done a bit of research on that, Charles, like yourself, and there's a lot to research, and I suggest people do research it.
Well,
absolutely, it makes sense.
Charles.
Oh, go ahead, PJ. I was just.
No, I was just going to say, look out for GMO cannabis coming your way soon, so at least we'll have something to eat. Yeah,
right. It's GMOs there. It's man, Monsanto, that company. The people that invest in that and keep encouraging these companies that use GMOs and stuff. I always tell people, not a good idea. Not a good idea. You're encouraging a lot of more diseases, more problems that the world doesn't need right now, and let's not mess around with nature. When you go away from the natural, you become unnatural, which causes you to become sick or diseased in many aspects, such as spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, and physically, which is not a good idea. And speaking of which, we have about the working on the factory farm here, how the conditions are pretty bad. There have been many undercover investigations into factory farming over the years, many of which the inhumane conditions in which animals are forced to live on these farms. Through these investigations, we've discovered that life for billions of animals living in factory farms is an absolute hell. In these facilities, animals spend their short lives crammed on top of one another in filthy living quarters. They are given no access to sunlight or the outdoors and suffer from painful body deformities, stress, and disease. The experience of the animals living and dying in factory farms is cruel torture, but the animals aren't the only ones subject to cruelty. People are also impacted by industrial animal agriculture. This little window keeps popping up. Working on factory farm, a job at a factory farm has one of the largest turnover rates in America, exceeding 95 to 100% annually. Despite employing more than 500,000 workers, statistically, these workers come from low-income families with approximately 72% born outside the United States and 68% born in Mexico, according to the National Center for Farm Worker Health, Incorporated. The statistics pulled from the 2007-2009 National Agricultural Workers Survey results also show that 38% of farm workers do not speak any English. In the same study, 48% of farm workers do not have legal authorization to work in the United States, and only 33% are U.S. citizens. For employees without legal authorization, the job is something they can easily obtain in order to provide for themselves and their families. Easy, however, does not come without consequences. Slaughterhouse workers are all at-will employees, meaning they can be fired at any time. As a result, very few workplace hazards are reported to supervisors for fear they will lose their jobs or be replaced by somebody else willing to do the grueling and dangerous work. Factory farms depend on these types of employees because they are thankful for the work and, as a result, unlikely to unionize, will endure horrible working conditions, long hours, sometimes 10-hour days or more, and be satisfied with very little pay. The longer the employees work at factory farms, the more likely they are to be injured. An employee who works at a factory farm for 5 years has a 50% chance of being injured at the workplace. This could range from contracting diseases, from handling the animal carcasses, to severe injuries from using the line equipment. During an average workday, employees inhale anything from ammonia to hydrogen sulfide, plus a number of other airborne bacteria. The air quality is so bad in these farms that 70% of farm workers experience some sort of respiratory issue. There are also long-term injuries to the employees' hands, arms, shoulders, and backs due to the physical and repetitive nature of the work. The worst of it all is that the number of people killed by this kind of work. According to the Center for Disease Control, there were 20.2 deaths per 100,000 workers in 2012. The CDC also states every day about 167 agricultural workers suffer a low injury and illness rate would offer adequate health care to their employees. Unfortunately, many of these workers go without health care or cannot find proper transportation or time off to get them to a doctor. Unfortunately, most workers are afraid of reporting these conditions because they want to keep their jobs and steady income. That income at roughly $23,000 a year barely keeps these employees at or above the poverty line. Labor laws are also not taken too seriously, and the factory farm industry hired. Investigations have shown workers as young as 15 years old employed by these farms. Factory farming in the community. So also what they talk about in this part of the article is essentially the environmental damage that it causes to the community, about how a lot of the water gets polluted and all these kinds of things, and how they actually are able to spray it, and it causes a lot of illnesses to newborn babies. Even a lot of these people that live in these communities don't have enough money to leave, so therefore they have to endure the unhealthy consequences of factory farming. So, anything you guys want to add to this article, guys? What do you guys think about this?
Factory farming. It's got to go. I have actually visited many years ago where they keep battery hens and that, and it's just very cruel. It's just very cruel, and the way that the lack of any sort of life that animals have, and that it's just all wrong. I've always felt that side of things is not necessary at all. It's not necessary at all. People say, oh well, we've got millions and billions of people, we've all got to be fed, but like you say, there are plenty of healthy alternatives. And a lot of red meat is not really needed in your diet. You can live quite healthy and quite happily without eating red meat. So that takes care of a lot of the factory farming. But then, my wise are not to mention before, I do eat a bit of fish occasionally. So I'm not, it'd be hypocritical of me to say that I don't eat anything with eyes, or you know what I mean. But I don't eat, very rarely eat red meats of any kind. One thing is, It's quite expensive to get a decent meat now, even if you do eat it. And the other thing is, you don't really know what you're eating, like you say, with all the antibiotics that's pushed in them and factory farming and all the rest of it. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it, Charles.
I'd just like to say, look out for a documentary called Cowspiracy. Conspiracy, yeah?
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that. I actually got to look that one up, because there's quite a bit of them out there. But there's a lot of people being aware of this. One that really hit home was Earthlings. But I heard about Cowspiracy being very home-hitting and in your the realities of the dairy and meat and all that kind of stuff. How they inject them with a lot of hormones, all these hormones to make them fatter and to create more milk and all this stuff, and how it goes into our milk, and now we drink this stuff and it causes more problems. And again, I think don't they cover a part in there where Fox News, where these reporters were actually covering the story, and they actually got fired from Fox for talking about Monsanto putting injecting these cows with these hormone-inducing or enhancing chemicals.
Mm.
We talk about a lot of stuff on that documentary.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check that one out. There's another one I watched, which is in French, but there's also subtitles for it. It's called Le Jugement in French, which is The Judgment. And it's actually very interesting the way they did it, is that this lobbyist is essentially in this dark room, and then he's like in a courtroom, and the judge is like a jester kind of judge. He's got all the makeup on, and he brings forth all these things, and he calls him Mr. Carnist, which means carn, which is meat, carnism. And this guy is actually a lobbyist for the dairy industry and the meat industry, and then also not only that, but for the military-industrial complex. And they're just bringing forth all this information forth and showing how destructive just his work was towards the planet, and how eating meat, how it pollutes, and how it's very, very bad for the animals, not only for the animals but for people and working environments and so on. So I definitely encourage people to watch that one. So yeah, just what I want to share with you is about, since she was mostly axed around farming and meat and all that stuff, we'll go on to something different. Anything else you guys want to add to this, or?
No, I'm alright, Charles. I just wanted to point that documentary out to viewers overall.
No, you're right, Charles. Excellent.
So this guy, why top baseball prospect and millionaire Daniel Norris chooses to live in a van. I thought that was pretty interesting, considering a lot of the athletes, they got a lot of money, and they always choose to spend their money on expensive clothes and rings and jewelry and homes and all this kind of stuff. And I just found this was I appreciate this man's humbleness. So here goes. When it comes to the spending habits of professional athletes, we're accustomed to hearing about lavish purchases, luxury cars, dream estates, and even pieces of clothing whose price falls in the four-figure plus range. Shortly after being given a $2 million signing bonus in 2011 by the Toronto Blue Jays, many might have expected that top MLB pitching prospect Daniel Norris would have done the same. But in reality, Daniel has gone in a much different direction. Having grown up in a family that has always valued the outdoors, Daniel maintains that appreciation and has no intention of letting his financial or expected career success get in the way of it. The one purchase Daniel made shortly after being drafted was a 1978 Volkswagen Westphalia, the microbus that Daniel, by choice, calls home for a portion of the year. Every professional athlete has their own unique off-season routine, and Daniel's routine involves him driving, cooking, camping, and surfing, with nothing but the van that he has nicknamed Shaggy by his side. Pretty interesting, eh? Daniel's motivation. When asked why he chooses to spend his off-season in such an unconventional manner, Daniel replied, "I did it to be alone and to find peace within myself. I love my teammates and family, but I'm not the kind of person who likes to be around a ton of people. I'm a thinker. I like to be alone with my thoughts. When I'm out there, it's just me, Shaggy, and God, and I can really connect with myself. It's very peaceful. I can relate to what he says. The fact that Daniel is fully engaged in the world of sports, which prides itself on competition and showmanship, yet is able to see the value in independence and peacefulness, is truly inspiring, especially considering the fact that his skill set at the young age of 21 gives him all the rights needed to boast about potentially being one of the league's best within a couple of years. In 2014 alone, Daniel led all qualified minor leaguers in strikeouts per 9 innings, made his MLB debut with the Toronto Blue Jays, and was touted by several major MLB analysts as one of the best prospects in the game. Rather than letting this get to his head, Daniel instead remains humble and chooses to search for peace in solitude. Now, there's more to it. I mean, just to kind of get people's interest about this Daniel's lifestyle, which a lot of people tend to make a lot of money and then decide to buy themselves a mansion, buy these big sports cars and things like that. This guy chose to still live humbly and be real, essentially, which I appreciate. I think it's good to have these kind of athletes to come out and share their way of life with others to maybe be a good shining beacon of an example to how to humble yourself and be a beacon of true inspiration. So yeah, read it out. It's actually The Collective Evolution. If ever they actually have very good articles. They actually have a few documentaries out as well. I do suggest you guys read up a bit on this. So PJ, Andy, anything you want to add to this?
Good on him. Good on him. That's what I say. Because, I mean, he's living what I think most of us, even in our own countries, even for the indigenous people, even like where you are, Charles, actually more to the point, is what natural life is a nomadic life. I think the North American Red Indians moved around for obviously the time of the year, for the temperature, for the hunting of the whatever they fed on, the growing seasons. So basically, he's going back to his roots, really, because in a way, I think we're all naturally, a lot of us indigenous people anyway, are nomads. So I kind of like his style, and good on him, I say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, same here. I'd struggle to add to that. It's pretty much covered it. I like that bit. Keys to peace and happiness lie within us. We just need to give ourselves the chance to actually be with ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, it's very important to be able to connect with yourself and learn about yourself in life, because if you the perspective of life is through ourselves, right? The body, our temple. And if we neglect that, then of course that's why it's a lot easier to make bad decisions and go on and give power to illusions, if you will, that are self-destructive. Because I mean, if you base your life on illusions and lies and things like that that are not real, but just give you some kind of filler just for the moment, well, if someone comes around with truth or things that are threatening those things, you have nothing really to fight with or to stand on, which makes you kind of empty. And so when you see a lot of people out there that you hear them say, "Oh, I don't like being alone," they can't, you hear people get out of a relationship and then they're already into another relationship just a month later. It goes to show that these people haven't taken the time to really appreciate themselves and their essence and knowing who they are and how they can actually manifest such greatness into this world. So like you guys said, good on this guy, Daniel. I encourage him to continue doing that, and hopefully he becomes a beacon for all the other athletes that make a lot of money, to encourage them to live that kind of lifestyle, and hopefully be able to give back to the community as compared to take, and get all this praise from all these people that are really not in tune with themselves, that like to encourage these illusions and encouraging bad stuff as compared to encouraging the real people that are actually working hard to change the world and offer solutions and remedy to heal this beautiful planet.
Well, that's it. It goes back to your physical body being your true mobile home.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. It's, you know, your body is the only thing you have the right to is you, and you belong to life, not the other way around. And knowing about it, how it functions, about the elements, and you know how to feed it and take care of it, and to make it a awesome tool of creation, because that's what we're here for, is to create and then share that with other people and inspire other people to do the same. And so the more we do that, the more we'll be prosperous, and we'll be walking the right path of light and true substantial solutions. So that's pretty much all I had for articles and what I want to share tonight. So if Andy or PJ who wants to go next.
Yeah, I'll go. No, Charles, thanks for that.
Great.
Charles, excellent.
My pleasure. Google Hangouts.
Okay, you should be good to see my articles appearing, yeah?
Yeah, it looks like Dan Goodman.
Yep.
Dan Good.
You both got it, yeah?
Looks like him.
Okay, well, on that note, on Andy's note, I'll start. Hold on, yeah, try and make it a bit bigger. This is some news from the US. States consider increasing taxes for the poor and cutting them off the affluent. A number of Republican-led states are considering tax changes that in many cases would have the effect of cutting taxes on the rich and raising them on the poor. Conservatives are known for hating taxes, but particularly hate income taxes, which they say have a greater dampening effect on growth. Of the 10 or so Republican governors who have proposed tax increases, nearly all have called for increases in consumption taxes, which hit the poor and middle class harder than the rich. Favourite targets for the new taxes include gas, e-cigarettes, and goods and services in general. Governor Paul R. LePage of Maine, who wants to start taxing movie tickets and haircuts, is also proposing a tax break for the lowest income families to relieve some of the pressure. At the same time, some of those governors, most notably Mr. LePage, Nikki R. Haley of South Carolina, and John R. Kasich of Ohio, have proposed significant cuts to their state income tax. They say that tax policies that encourage business growth, provide more jobs and economic benefits for everyone. Getting a little bit of feedback with you guys on my side. Just wondered.
Well, is that the article was done there?
Well, I'm just having a few little problems here. Hold on, Charles.
Okay.
Yeah, back to article now. That's it. Sorry about that.
Oh,
Yeah, so what's your thoughts on that then?
did you want to go first, Andy?
Yeah, go ahead, Charles.
Okay. Well, for me, again, you know, when I look at these politicians talking, I really don't find any. You're never going to find any substantial solutions to our problems that we face in the world with these politicians, because, you know, they're part of a corrupt environment, and what ends up happening is when you go into an environment that's corrupt, especially these people, you can see that they really don't know much about themselves. You can't change the environment. The environment's going to change you, and just what they say about taxing, where they're focusing the taxation, goes to show you that they're not getting it. Is that you don't tax the poor people, the average people. You tax the corporations and establishments that are generating billions upon billions of dollars. That, yeah, okay, they may be generating jobs for us or work and stuff like that. But let's be real. What allows us to work, and what is it that, you know, why is it money so important? Is, well, it's a transference of resources that we use paper money to use as a medium to make it easier. So who makes our cars and who makes the food and all these things is people like me and you. It's not these billionaire companies that call themselves Toyota or Monsanto and all these kinds of things, these are just illusions to throw in our faces to think, oh well, they're actually people. Well, we should appreciate.
Yeah, definitely.
Them and not what is it to you guys if you give up let's say you're making, let's say, $3 billion. Out of the $3 billion, you're trying to tell me you need $3 billion, you can't just give up the $1 billion and help give back to society and the community, where the community has actually invested so much time, effort, and energy and money towards your companies to actually generate those billions of dollars. So you're not gonna be able to give back. So this idea of taxing the lowest income or giving them a break or whatever, it's all nonsense to me. It's all just, again, chasing their own tail and deviating away from the true root of the cause of the problems here. Go after the bankers, go after Microsoft, Monsanto, all these big companies that are making billions of dollars and just sitting on it, just hoarding it. It's like you look at a man that lives in a house that hoards a whole bunch of newspapers. We look at them as being crazy, but yet billionaires or millionaires that sit on loads and loads of money, not being able to actually let it circulate again, we praise them and give them awards and Time Magazine Billionaire of the Year and all this kind of stuff. It's just lunacy. It's upside down. So that's what I had to say.
Is it going to vary on your opinion on that?
Not really. I pretty much agree. What Charles said. Really, it's I've looked at this tax scheme or scam, whatever you want to call it. It's quite a relative new thing, I think, especially in the Americas. Voluntary contributions, basically. Are you obliged to pay it? And obviously, the only people who are educated in the point where they recognise that it's not an obligation are the very rich, and they use the legal system to dodge out of it. And it's always the working class economic slave, should we say, that pay these taxes. But the thing is, like I said last night, them taxes don't get to go back to the treasury or to the governments to pay for the amenities and the services. They go into the offshore accounts of these fat cap corporations, along with all their other taxless windfalls they get away with, and then the debt is passed on to the slave the following year because the government can't even service its deficit. So it's a Ponzi scheme, massive Ponzi scheme. That's what it is. So taxes actually don't.
It's like the citizens of Canada or United States, Britain. It doesn't matter where you are. Is that we've been sold out by our politicians as collateral. And if people really looked into the whole taxation fraud and knew the reality of how it works and how it's actually it's not necessarily it's not lawful. It's not something that you have to. It's actually by your own consent. Is that even here in Canada, there's been a lot of court cases where people say, well, look, if you can show me the contract that has my signature saying that I have to pay these taxes, I'll gladly pay the taxes. But you'll never find it. Because why? Because it's not there. It's all by consent. It even says it on your tax forms that if you do filling out this tax form is by your consent and your free will. And it's not necessarily unlawful, but it's illegal. But again, people don't understand the difference between legal and lawful. And if people really understood about their constitutional rights and taxation without representation, all these things, more people would fight and not give much power to these taxation ploys, like you say, the Ponzi schemes, right?
That's right. Well, if you actually look at a lot of people have heard of, I've heard of this voluntary contributions, but I thought it was meant something else. Go and check it out. It means what it means, and it means what it says. And only the rich and powerful actually take advantage of that because they know it's not obligatory. It's a voluntary contribution. But of course, we don't have the legal system by the what because we're not controlling the whole thing. But corporations is corporatism. that runs the world. We all know what it's about. So I suggest people just go and educate themselves and check out what these words really mean, what they're told what they mean. So there we go, PJ.
Yep.
Yeah, nice. Well, it's not going to differ from my next article, really. As we move over to the UK news, we've got this article: lose weight or lose your benefits. Cameron vows to cut welfare budget. In a proposed overhaul of the benefit system, David Cameron wants to cut the welfare budget by £500 million. Cameron is expected to announce that the government will look at cutting the benefits of people who suffer from obesity and alcohol or drug addiction if they refuse treatment. The Independent reports the Conservatives plan to tell obese people on welfare that they will lose their sickness benefit if they do not diet. The move is the party's latest foray in reducing welfare costs, and they also want to see drug addicts and alcoholics stripped of benefits if they refuse treatment plans. While playing to many traditional Tory voters, it will infuriate addiction and other health charities which have previously criticised similar proposals. It would also bring the Conservatives into direct confrontation with the British Medical Association, which in 2013 castigated as draconian and still calls by Tory-held Westminster Council to cut the benefits of overweight people who refused exercise regimes. David Cameron, who will announce the measure today, said obesity and addiction are treatable and that people claiming long-term are choosing a life on benefits rather than work. He has asked Professor Dame Carol Black, a Department of Health advisor, to carry out a review to identify how best to get long-term claimants back into work and thus avoid the unwarranted expense of their claims. The Tories estimate that almost 100,000 people with treatable conditions, such as alcoholism and obesity, claim sickness benefits, costing the taxpayer around £350 million a year. Overall, there are 2.5 million claimants for sickness benefits, of whom 1.5 million have claimed for at least 5 years. So there's not much different, really, is there, in terms of attitude from the US to UK?
Couldn't you say that's a form of blackmail?
Well, you know, it's...
What is that? What is that? Look, do as I say, otherwise you will be shot at dawn. What is this? You know, this is crazy crap, isn't it? You know? And as we said earlier on today, they don't actually understand that what they're proposing doesn't help people that have got drug addiction, alcoholism, and actually people that are obese. It's the crap that they have to eat out of no choice of their own in the supermarkets. And basically, what we said earlier on, because that food is lacking in nutrients, minerals, vitamins, right, these people that are obese, right, are actually starving to death.
Yep. It's, you know, it's
the perception.
Anyway, over to you, Charles.
It's again not assessing the root problem, you know, of why is it that these people on benefits are obese and have alcohol problems and so on. As well, you know, I don't know how it is in England, but here in Canada, I mean, there's LCBOs, which are liquor stores and beer stores everywhere. You can buy cigarettes at the corner store. You know, meats and all these bad foods that are packaged and stuff like that are being sold like you wouldn't believe, like it's going out of style. And then these politicians, I mean, look at Cameron. He's got pudgy cheeks. I mean, hey, why don't you start working on your diet there, Cameron? You're getting a little thick there around the cheeks and around the belly. So, hey, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? And, And I mean,
There's a guy called Eric Pickles. He's a politician. You ought to see a picture of him. He's a British politician. You see a picture of him, Charles, and then you'll say, what are these guys on about? You know, go on, carry on.
He goes swimming though, Pickles, doesn't he? So at least, well, so I've heard. I mean, I might be wrong, but if he is, good on him.
What, in the local village pond? No, that's not nice, is it?
yeah. Well, it's another example of how the powerful preying on the weak, and problems of why we have economic problems on the weakest people of our society is that what are you supposed to do with people that are weak, that have disease or anything like that, and keep pushing them down? You want to reach out and help them and bring them up. And, you know, these politicians, I mean, they make a substantial amount of money. Like, they don't need all this money, because why? Well, they get brought everywhere. They don't have to pay for transportation. They have catering brought to them every day. I know this is the case here in Canada. So they don't have to spend much money on things, just gravy. It's all excessive just for why? So they can live lavish lifestyles and live like gluttonous, greedy pigs. And while there's pointing back, nonsense, and again, why people should kind of raise up and hold these people accountable when they come up with these crazy claims. And I can't help but feel like this is satire almost. Like this article is like they're laughing. It's like, yeah, let's put this out there. It's almost unbelievable for me to actually take this seriously, but I know the arrogance of these people is that this is actually somewhat true, if not all of it. You know, it's very ugly to watch.
Yeah.
Look at his face. Is he chewing a wasp, or is he? It looks like It looks like a backside that caught short, fell over, and fell in stinging nettles, doesn't it? You know. It's like it's my backside.
I think he means business. He's a businessman.
yeah.
Moving on. Cut short for time. Above the law, UK government attempts to block torture, rendition, lawsuit. Government lawyers are arguing in Britain's Court of Appeal that the case of a Pakistani man who claims he suffered brutal torture at the hands of British and American troops should not be heard in a court of law. The UK government previously said the case would compromise relations with Washington. Yunus Rahmatullah claims he was tortured for a decade following his capture by UK Special Forces in Iraq and subsequent handover to American soldiers in Afghanistan. He alleges his UK captors physically assaulted him, dragged him along the ground behind a moving vehicle, and hurled him into a pen filled with dogs. Lawyers from legal charity Reprieve are representing the 32-year-old. The charity says he was kidnapped in Iraq by British forces in 2004, tortured and detained in an Abu Ghraib detention facility, and subsequently taken to Afghanistan by US officials. Following a decade of captivity and abuse, Rahmatullah was eventually freed in 2014 last year. There's an image of him there. It says he was waterboarded by the UK Special Forces.
Wow.
Was it time for a proper inquiry?
I should say. Mind you, does the inquiries ever resolve anything?
Well, you're not going to resolve anything maybe if you will. It's still worth it.
To me, when I hear about these cases, I can't help but, you know, the first reaction, of course, is I get angry inside of me, but then, you know, I kind of, you know, just be these people that think they're above the law, and I don't know, like I think, you know, they're just delusional. These people are sick in their minds and thinking they're gonna get away with this, that they're not gonna be accountable for their actions. I mean, we all die one day, right? So you know, these people must fear death quite a lot, knowing what they've done to other people and justifying it through means of, you know, war tactics and all these kind of things. You know, torturing a human being is wrong. In any sentient being is wrong. And if you don't know that within yourself, well, there's going to be a lot of things that are going to come to show you.
Yeah, well, article extends. It says the Pakistani man's defence team is appealing a former decision by Britain's High Court that in the UK government could use the Crown Act of State doctrine to throw out its case. The government argues that legislation prevents UK courts from intercepting state acts abroad, even in cases where they are criminal. If the High Court's ruling remains in force, Reprieve says individuals' capacity to hold the British government accountable for serious human rights abuses in foreign states will be curtailed. Brockmiller's lawyer and legal director at Reprieve, Kat Craig, maintains her client was forced to endure some of the most shocking abuses of the war on terror. That's basic. That's the basis on that article. So the above the law? Question mark.
I thought they had something called the Geneva Convention. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that still in existence?
Does it stand up to the Crown Act of State?
It should stand up against torture, yeah.
Well, I think what they're trying to do is essentially piss this guy off to the point he's like, okay, well, he's gonna pretty much, they're trying to push him against the wall where he's gonna actually react in an act of terrorism. So they'll be able to say, oh, see, you know, it's like the bully in the schoolyard that punches the kids in the face while the teacher's not looking, and then eventually the kid decides to react and punch the bully back, and then the teacher turns around just in time to see the other kid that's been bullied react, and then they punish the kid. And then they don't bully doing the bad things, you know? You know, it's the same thing. It's the same kind of tactics they use. Is, oh, let's push people to the point where they have nothing else to lose, and then they'll act out in an act of terror or whatever, or just straight out. Because I mean, imagine the frustration this guy must be going through. You know, and I strongly advise against it. But I mean, would anyone blame him? You know, it's just these tactics they use, all psychological assaults, you know.
It brings me to this article. Deadly shooting at blasphemy debate in Copenhagen, featuring cartoonist Lars Vilks. This is in Denmark. This is the video. I don't know how long it is. If you want to just mute your microphones for a few minutes while I play this.
Yep. Mine is not want to pop up.
Welcome back. This is RT International. Back to our breaking news story now. Danish media reporting that several shots have been fired at a cafe in Copenhagen where a meeting about freedom of speech was being held. And there are dozens of bullet holes on the outside of the cafe, and at least 2 people have been taken out on stretchers. 2 shooters reportedly escaped the scene. The French diplomat was at the meeting. A controversial Swedish artist known for his caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad reportedly organized the meeting. And the cafe in northern Copenhagen is known for its jazz concert. It was hosting an event on the theme art, blasphemy, and the freedom of expression. When the shots were fired. We'll be bringing you more as we get up.
So 1 civilian was killed and 3 police officers injured after shots were fired at a cafe in Copenhagen during a free speech discussion attended by controversial artist Lars Vilks and the French ambassador to Denmark, according to Danish police. So that's the only bit I want to cover on that. I think you're having a bad day is my next article. Wildebeest is attacked by a hungry crocodile. Crocodile. And is then mauled by a hippo who was grumpy they were fighting on its territory. So this is the first image here. You can see the crocodile there, wildebeest and the hippo getting in between. None of them look happy. No, on there. Stunning photographs were taken by amateur photographer Nick Fleer, 27, on his visit to the Shingalana Dam in Londolozi Private Game Reserve in South Africa. On there. Oh, there's a video here as well. The moment when the wildebeest is attacked by the hungry crocodile. If it'll play, that is. No, doesn't look like I'm going to get the video for that one. But there you go. There's the last image for you. It says, seconds later, a furious hippo joined the fight and apparently becoming irritated that the battle to the death was going on so close to where it was waiting. Oh, there we go. It did play after all.
The migration of the wildebeest, following the annual pattern of rainfall and grass growth across Kenya. A herd of more than 100,000 reaches the Mara River that runs through Tanzania and Kenya. At the river, they find a familiar enemy. The Nile crocodile lies in wait for the wildebeest to make the dangerous crossing. A desperate fight ensues, disturbing a family of hippos downriver. The Lord of the Mara has little opportunity to capture large prey, and they do not let the opportunity slip. The battle does not claim many victims, all but 2 of the wildebeest.
There you go, an abrupt end. There you go, any comments, guys?
Pretty interesting how a hippopotamus is very aggressive, very.
They should really be the king of the jungle.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, they're known to be like they kill a lot of people in Africa. So yeah, I wouldn't mess with the hippo. I'll tell you that.
But eventually, the exhausted wildebeest gave up the fight, allowing the crocodile to have its dinner.
Make it across, but for one baby, it's a crossing too far.
And the hippo to return to its wading. I think that video did continue, but there you go. Not quite as smooth as I could have shown it to you, but you get the pictures. Okay, I'll see you out there. My article's done.
Okay, mate. I didn't say anything in that. I thought I'd let you get on with it. It's... Alright, where's me share? Where's me share? Where's me share? Come on.
Come on now.
Alright. Have we got anything?
That's the one. Yeah.
Right. Well, this is an article that it was last month's, but it took me a little bit of time to track it down for some reason. But anyway, other things came before it. But basically, it's you could be prosecuted if your broadband interferes with radio signals. Ofcom proposes that people with the power line network and equipment could face prosecution if it interferes with radio signals. Radio signals? What's that all about? That old technology. Oh, what's this? Get off. Now, I'm getting pop-ups tonight, PJ. Thousands of homeowners could face prosecution if their broadband persistently interferes with radio signals, under Ofcom proposals published after lobbying by intelligence agency GCHQ. The government agency has become increasingly concerned in recent years about power line networking equipment. This allows people to use the mains wiring in their homes to transmit data as an alternative to a Wi-Fi network, and has been distributed to BT and TalkTalk customers to connect their television set-top boxes to broadband. Ofcom, the communications watchdog, published a consultation on Monday on the new regulations that will allow its officials to issue enforcement notices to shut down such networks when the electromagnetic radiation they can emit interferes with radio signals. Those who fail to comply will face criminal prosecution. An Ofcom spokesperson said Ofcom's proposals are designed to update existing regulations to take account of developments in technology. They are not in response to requests from any organisation. As well as interference causing security issues, regulators also want to ensure that police and ambulance and air traffic control services are able to communicate clearly. The BBC has previously said DAB radio broadcasts are affected by power line technology. Ofcom said communications networks form an important part of the UK's national infrastructure, both directly and as an input to other services, including safety and security services, utilities, industrial, e.g. banking. Communications networks are a key aspect on which these services depend for their organisation and operations, and therefore it's important to protect their correct function from undue interference. GCHQ is particularly sensitive to interference because part of its role involves monitoring international military radio signals that can be very weak when they reach its receivers. As well as networking adapters, Ofcom said in the past 2 years it had received complaints of electromagnetic interference from TV aerial amplifiers, electric transformers, high voltage power cables and lightning, among other equipment. Under the regulators' proposals, those who do not comply with an order to stop their equipment causing undue interference face prosecution and fines up to £5,000 in England, Wales, and in most serious circumstances where lives could be threatened. In Scotland and Northern Ireland, the worst offenders face up to 3 months in prison. Current legislation blocks the safe sale of equipment likely to cause interference, but Ofcom said the rules do not account for problems once devices are in use caused by deterioration, poor installation and maintenance, or improper use. The regulator received 114 complaints of electromagnetic interference last year, but had powers to resolve only 3, it said. GCHQ declined to comment on the proposed clampdown. The agency has lobbied for stricter enforcement of anti-interference legislation for several years, and in 2011 warned in a rare public intervention later withdrawn that power line networking is likely to cause a detrimental effect to part of the core business of this department. So there you go. Power line adapters. Power line adapters are those little devices, those nasty little disgusting devices that you probably get with your BT hub or TalkTalk hub, and they're little things you plug in the mains, you know, your mains electricity where you get power from. And what that does is it resends the transmission from your hub, from your Wi-Fi hub down the electrical house wiring, which has got no shielding whatsoever, and your whole house becomes a transmitter. And you're transmitting that for several distances. I mean, it's quite possible to transmit it 3 or 4 miles, something like that. So, you know, not only are you causing interference to every other type of shortwave radio or anything like that with these nasty Chinese cheap knocked up sweat market things that have got no filters on. Basically, what sort of environment are you exposing to young kids today with the masses and masses of electromagnetic waves? That's not natural, let's be honest. They're all man-made. And anyway, apart from that, I know quite a bit about this because I've been into radios and communications since I was very young, and a lot of people have been complaining to the regulator, which is a total waste of time, of course, about interference on shortwave, which is now to the point where that if you like listening to shortwave radio for news or anything like that, it's pretty much impossible in the UK now with the interference levels. But it's interesting that GCHQ has got involved. It's because all of a sudden it's treading on their toes, and they can't listen into the other ways that they monitor, should we say, what's the word for us, PJ? What word for what did David Cameron call, not terrorists, but not activists, but extremists.
Domestic extremists.
Yes. So there we are. What do you think of that, PJ? That was the article that I was going to bring up quite some time ago, but we eventually got there.
Well, what is this? I think people need to start. Well, this. I think is it Ofcom? It's Ofcom, yeah.
Yeah, that's meant to be the regulator. Yeah, go on.
They need to get their act together because they're the ones who first started it off. Are they not?
They are the regulators that should set the standards for this equipment that's coming in.
Yeah, but instead they're passing that on to the
consumer.
To the consumer, right? Yeah, that's what.
A lot of people's not going to know whether they're causing interference. How are they going to know? And they could face up to.
Is it £1,000 fine?
£5,000 fine, and in some extreme cases, up to 3 months imprisonment. You could be using your internet for your TV or your computer. You get a knock on the door and dragged away and sent to prison for 3 months and not knowing what you've done. I mean, that's a possibility.
Me, it's I don't know much about how this works for the radio, how it interferes, but again, it's taking away the responsibility from the corporations that provide the service, and again, putting it in the laps of the citizens, the consumers, which spend money and buy into their product, and then now we're at risk of getting arrested or being thrown in jail or liberties taken away from us. Again, directing the finger, pointing the finger at the wrong people, and where it's like, yeah, we need to be responsible, but at the same time, if we're not aware, we don't know about this stuff. I mean, the average household doesn't really know about how this works, and so it's up to them to provide the solutions to the problem.
So basically, alternatively, the way I see it is, if you don't want the GCHQ to spy on you, then pay £5,000 or do 3 months in prison. If you're not bothered, then is that a good way of looking at things?
Well, but the people who are responsible for stopping this sort of equipment coming into the country are Ofcom. So they don't. But they're going to use, like Charles says, they're going to blame it on the people for using the products which they didn't regulate coming into the country. It's craziness.
But this is all because GCHQ are having problems listening.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, because
frequencies, right?
Yeah, absolutely. HF frequencies, which you can talk around the world most on certain conditions. Shortwave radio has been gradually taken off the air because of the replacement of the internet and and Wi-Fi and the IT technology. So it's been replaced, but it's still old technology, if you like, and it's still very useful, and that's why they still use it. The military still use it. I dare say espionage still use it. It's still used, and they need to listen in, and they're banging the old gong now because it's messing with them. Or I don't know, but the fact of the matter is passing the buck on to the consumer, who don't even know whether they're interfering or not. And the equipment that they bought in trust from these corporations, that Ofcom, who were going to fine the regulators, were the responsible party for bringing the rubbish in the first place. It's madness. It's absolute madness. I'll move on to the next article, I think.
I agree with you, Andy, for sure. It is madness. It's
Well, I can't make any sense of it, and I don't suppose I ever know. Here's another one. This is NHS private health provider accused of US hospice fraud. Optum, that's the name of them. They're one of 12 firms favoured by the NHS to take big contracts when it gets all privatised pretty soon under the TTIP agreement that's going through the EU at the moment. One of the private health firms awarded the chance to earn contracts worth up to £5 billion to provide back office services to the NHS. Doctors is being pursued through the courts over allegations of a major fraud of American hospice system. Optum, one of the 12 organisations given the preferred status by NHS England, is accused by the US federal government of falsely claiming American taxpayers' cash for looking after people in hospices who were not terminally ill. According to a lawsuit seen by The Observer, an investigation by the government found that patients whom the company claimed were terminally ill were living for up to 4 years in hospices run by Optum. One 87-year-old woman in Colorado Springs hospice was fit enough to travel to Kansas, a 10-hour round trip, and on her return proudly showed the hospice chaplain pictures of her fish she caught. It is said probably she went out fishing for the day, 10-hour journey. By packing their hospices across 13 American US states with patients who were not coming to the end of their lives, the firm was able to cut the most expensive costs that come with admitting people and dealing with their deaths, the lawsuit claims. The company is also accused of making it hard for patients who were not terminally ill to leave. A spokesperson for Optum said it was vigorously defending the allegations contained in the court filing, but was unable to comment on a current investigation. The extraordinary claims will, however, throw doubt over NHS England's decision, announced earlier this month, to award Optum the chance to provide support to doctors and other organisations buying health services for patients, whether it be from NHS or private providers. It is understood that NHS England was not aware of the allegations when it made its decision. The new system under which private firms provide this support is a result of the government's controversial decision to reorganise the NHS and dismantle the primary trust care. Well, basically, it's to carry on with privatising what's left of the NHS, and this is all was all done.
Is the NHS England now? That's not to be confused with the NHS, am I right?
Yes, but it's still yeah. What's in a name?
Well, if you say something there, and
yeah, exactly. But these are just one of when they open the gates under this TTIP agreement, which is all going through, which is part of privatising what's left that's not privatised of the NHS. NHS England, NHS whatever, NHS. So it's all completely privatised. I mean, a doctor I don't see anymore 4 years ago said it's all going to be privatised within 10 years. You know, we've had the nod on the board. I'm on the board of the southeast part of the UK, and we've all had the nod, and this is where it's going. And that was 5-6 years ago. So we've got 4 years to go, 3 or 4 years, It'll all be completely privatised, and it'll all be health insurance, but under like Obamacare type, whatever, I don't know, but I won't read the rest of the article because it goes on and on and on. But basically, you get the picture, PJ, yeah?
Oh, yeah. You will be going to work, you won't be living in a camper van on the side of the beach.
Nah, so, but you know, it's just.
You need a doctor.
Anyway, that's that. But we're going in here. We'll move along because we're running a bit late tonight. And this article is about the latest cold snap. New York City braces for coldest day in 2 decades. The Big Apple will be more like the big icebox this weekend. An Arctic cold front packing dangerous winds of up to 60 miles an hour could make it feel like it's 20 below zero by Sunday. The coldest wind chill factor since 1993, storm of the century forecasters warned. You better snuggle up, AccuWeather meteorologist Tom Kynes said, noting the Arctic blast will blow through after another snowstorm slams the already hard-hitting northeast this weekend. The blizzard to the north will skirt the city Saturday into early Sunday, but could leave up to 3 inches of snow on the ground in the metro area. Saturday's high winds Sorry, Saturday's high will be about 35 with a low of 17. But by Sunday morning, conditions will be downright dangerous. The thermometer will plummet to 6 degrees or lower. When the winds pick up Saturday night, that's the signal the front is crashing through contact. The wind which will build as the thermometer drops, which means brave souls venturing outdoors Sunday morning should dress for the North Pole with plenty of layers and no skin exposed. Sometimes we forget about our ears and our noses, Klein said, urging people to bundle up outside. But some New Yorkers said they would ride out the frigid temperatures indoors and ward off the chill with some hot food or a bottle of booze. I'm going to go home, eat some soup, stay warm. I just want to get to home to heat, Eddie Gerardo of Cobble Hill, Brooklyn, said while leaving work in the Upper West Side. Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, forecasters said the wind chills could be colder than March 1993, when the so-called storm of the century of 93 superstorm swept across the east coast from Alabama to Canada, killing more than 300 people before it headed out to sea. So there's a big cold snap going, and just to finish it off with a bit of a laugh, because it's silliness again. It's too cold to protest global warming at Yale. Yale anti-fossil fuel campaigners have indefinitely postponed a protest that was set for this weekend due to unfavourable weather conditions and other logistical issues. Fossil-free Yale, a group pushing the university to divest itself from fossil fuels, told the Yale Daily News that the frigid snow weather set for this weekend will mean their global warming protest will have to be postponed. I'm not going to bother reading the rest of the article because it goes on and on, but you know.
It's pretty funny.
Fuels, huh?
Let me get it back. Come here. And there we go. So yeah, I'm sorry it wasn't very brilliant news tonight, but I thought I'd finish with that because well, then wait until the summer comes, and then the protesters against global cooling will call it off because it's too hot. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you know, the whole thing that they protest to, you know, reduce on fossil fuels, I'm not against that. I mean, I'm all for it. I appreciate their enthusiasm and the fact that, you know, they want to bring awareness, but at the same time, again, it comes back to the whole global warming thing, if it's true or not, what it's based out of, which, again, you know, it could be true, and it could be a possibility in the future if we're not careful with how we take care of this planet and where we're going. I mean, just talking about oil industries and fossil fracking and, you know, all these other messes, even, I mean, just war, all the wars we're having, all these bombs and explosions and using depleted uranium shells, definitely not helping the environment. And Fukushima and all this stuff, I mean, you know, I'm not against these people that are actually going to protest for global warming, but at the same time, it just comes back to the ridiculousness of the agenda behind global warming, of why people are pushing it, especially big corporations and governments to get us on board with the carbon tax, right? So
tell the viewers it doesn't exist, Andy.
Hey?
So tell the viewers it doesn't exist.
Which doesn't exist? Global warming. Oh, listen, look, climate change, global cooling, global warming, climate change. If I had to pick out the three, I'd say climate change. But then it's natural.
Yeah.
It's a natural occurrence thing. I mean, they, you know, supposedly, if we believe these scientists with all their equipment and they've got ice cores, they've drilled down for tens of thousands of years data. They say they have this cataclysmic events from volcanoes going off, spewing more CO2 into the atmosphere in one go than, you know, the industrial evolution of 1,000,000 times. So let's get it right. CO2 is not, you know, it's always good to treat the planet with a bit more, you know, like Charles is saying, and I'm all for that. I think alternative energy rather than burning hydrocarbons, let's get it right, hydrocarbons, which are organic, by the way. This fossil fuel business, when they when they trot it out for fracking shale gas out of oil out of shale gas, it's hydrocarbons. It's organic. Got nothing to do with dead animals. Let's get it right, and people should get themselves educated on that point. But the fact of the matter is, what I'm saying about it is, there's no need for any of this. There's plenty of technology out there that they know, right, that can work. And, you know, people say, oh, wind. I say, yeah, solar, tidal, wave power. You know, there's the hydrogen fuel cell is definite. I don't care what anybody says, because if you look at the simple technology that's involved with doing the hydrogen fuel cell from water, it has been done, and we've read the stories and we know what happened. So let's.
Well, essentially, if you look at combustible engines, that's what they use is vapor, right, to get it to go. So. You know, you can get vapor from water, so
that's it.
So that's it. You're right, absolutely. When it comes to, like, my cousin Richard, he's got a property up north from Ottawa, and he's got a geothermal system installed into his home that gets it from the lake, and you know, doesn't pay nothing for heating his place and cooling his place. It's amazing. It's like, wow. You know, if a lot of people did on the lake, then of course it could probably cause a lot of problems in the flow of the lake. But then at that point, what you do is just you have one place where there's one main geothermal site where it generates the energy, and then have all these different piping going to all the different homes, and therefore it wouldn't cause as much problems. But it's, you know, it's a good solution. And like you were saying, tidal, there's wave, geothermal, there's solar. There's, you know, if we implement all these different kinds of solutions, not just one, but like all of them, you'll see a lot of the solutions will be there. All the problems will disappear. I mean, you know, here in Canada, we're actually a lot of people are trying to push towards tidal and wave energy, especially in the Maritimes, because we actually have the best place to actually have a. I think it's, I'm not too sure if it's tidal or wave, because there's a difference, right? But I think it's tidal. I think the tides we have here are like the best in the world to actually generate a lot of energy for, I think, half of the country, or not, if not all.
Right.
So, I mean, you know, it's just getting people on board and getting informed, and actually putting the pressure on the people or the establishments and governments, and also, you know, people vote with their money, right? If you go and continue to buy fossil fuels or, you know, gasoline at the gas station and not use the alternative methods, then of course they're going to keep pushing that out, right? As compared to if you go towards the alternative ways, then you're making the statement. You're voting with your energy, with your time, your effort, and also. So it's
a bit hold out, isn't it? Especially just even if you take cars. I mean, cars. How many millions of cars are there? Yeah. I mean, it's a bit old out. What is it? 140-year-old? The internal combustion machine. It's getting on a bit. I mean, I thought we was meant to have advanced in technology, but the car engine, you know, the internal combustion engine is still there after a century and a half nearly. So, come on, we're meant to have progressed, you know. They wonder about, oh, isn't modern technology marvellous? You know, we've done so much in such a short time. How comes that dirty, stinking, carbon monoxide belching, oil guzzling engine is still there after 150 years?
Well, if you actually look at the diesel engine, which was created by Rudolf Diesel back at the turn of the century of the 20th century, this actually was made and designed to run on peanut oil. And so Rudolf Diesel actually created that. And if you look at the world, how it goes around, like if you look at transports, you look at boats, trains, all these things, they run on diesel engines.
Well, hemp oil, there's the great plant again. That makes a fantastic biofuel, doesn't it?
Exactly. So to make the transition into, you know, helping it be more environmentally friendly, it wouldn't be such a big effort. It'd actually be very easy. If you look at Jimmy Carter, he started up a farm, an algae farm, when he was president, to actually generate all these fossil fuels, because at the time there was embargoes against the United States from the Saudis. And so he actually started, you know, working on different methods and solutions to actually bring out cars that would run on the biofuels as compared to using the oil.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, the embargo was lifted, and then, okay, well, everyone said, okay, well, the problem's over, so they went back to going with oil. But just to show you is that there are solutions out there, and we just got to implement them and work at them and get people involved and really show people why it's important to do so, because it's cheaper on your wallet, it's better on the environment, your health. I mean, there's so many benefits from it. So why not? Why not do it? You know, it's.
Thanks, Andy and Charles, for your articles.
Hey, you're welcome, PJ.
My pleasure. Thank you. Well, thank you as well, Andy and PJ.
No worries. Thanks, Charles.
We're a lot more enlightened tonight, folks.
Thanks for joining us, those that are viewing. Tune back in tomorrow for some more Flux news.